Because of the relationship between their families, the two of them often hung out together since they were kids, and Song Kai naturally became the leader of the duo due to his psychological age. However, Shen Qing often did not accept this because he was 2 years older than Song Kai and always insisted that he was the boss. Over time, Big Qing became his nickname. Knowing that Song Chao and Shen Wenji could chat for hours on end without pausing, and with noon approaching, Song Kai and Shen Qing decided not to sit around anymore. After saying goodbye, they both left the office together. Once they stepped out of the office, Shen Qing, who had been cautious just moments before, instantly changed, draping an arm over Song Chi's shoulder and heading straight for the first floor. "Come on, it's been a while since we last saw each other, we need to catch up properly today." In contrast to the excited Shen Qing, Song Kai had more on his mind. "Isn't it still your working hours at this time? Let's wait for lunch." Although he had Shen Wenji's backing, it was still better to be cautious within the principality's law enforcement agency. Shen Qing paused for a moment but did not refuse. He was at a critical point for a promotion, and although it was unlikely that a small matter like this would get him into trouble, it was always better to be cautious. The two waited for over half an hour until the midday mealtime arrived. Then they left the torch bureau in Shen Qing's Bentang Type 2 car and headed straight to a well-known restaurant nearby. "You're doing pretty well, huh? This car must cost at least $1 million, right? When did you buy it?" The Bentang brand kinetic car, under the banner of the Chengxing Principality's Bentang Consortium, was known for its quality. Even though the Bentang Type 2 was a model from over 100 years ago, it still cost over 1 million credit points. Even if it couldn't compare to the floating land mining cart with onboard intelligence that he had recently purchased, it was not something that a typical zero-rank torch ship captain would covet. It's not about affordability, but zero-rank torch ship captains seldom spent their money on kinetic cars that could only fly within floating lands, as it would cost 100 threads of zero-rank floating land origin, which is the total gain from a trip to the alien star domain. And since Shen Qing had gotten one, it meant that he had enough spare cash after strengthening his torch warship, which indicated that he had been doing quite well for the past 2 years. Shen Qing smiled proudly and said with animated eyebrows, "Not bad. During an exploration of the alien star domain a few months ago, by a stroke of luck, I stumbled upon an ancient civilization's ruins and found a batch of great stuff. Besides keeping one blue and one white item for myself, I sold the other white items that I didn't need for thousands of threads of zero-rank floating land origin." Song Chi's eyebrows shot up. An intrinsic phrase from his past life unconsciously slipped out of his mouth. Holy shit! Ancient civilization ruins, such an opportunity was indeed rare, even exceedingly rare. The shattered starry sea was boundless, nurturing civilizations as numerous as the sands of the Ganges. Over millions of years, countless civilizations have perished for various reasons, leaving behind traces of their existence. Blown by the winds of time, these remnants slowly turned into ruins of ancient civilizations. Although there are many such ruins, when considering the entire, boundless shattered starry sea, it's a whole different story. For an ordinary person to come across such ruins, it's incredibly difficult. Caught up in his musings, Shen Qing flashed a mysterious smile but did not continue speaking, effectively capturing Song Chi's curiosity. The Four Seasons restaurant, top floor private room. Only after all the dishes had been served, did Shen Qing finally start to speak under the intense gaze of Song Kai. His voice dropped to a hushed whisper that only the two of them could hear, and he began to recount the complete details of the incident. The civilization one encountered is called the Buluo civilization, and those ruins are located on a completely barren and abandoned floating land. Last time, I only managed to open the first layer of the ruins, and based on my last investigation, there are at least 2 layers to that place. His eyes twinkled as Song Chi's thoughts raced. At least 2 layers, judging by the fact that the first layer contained blue oddities and multiple white relics, it's highly likely that there are purple quality relics in the ruins. What do you think? Interested in giving it a try together? The teleportation beacon I left behind will last for about 3 more months. We don't need to hurry. We can spend this time fostering our growth, and then attempt it together in a little over 2 months. More than 2 months. Upon hearing this time frame, Song Kai, who had been hesitant, made up his mind in an instant. All right, then let's give it a try together in 2.5 months. It had been almost half a month since his first exploration of the alien star domain, and in 13 days, he would make his second deployment. According to this timeline, 2.5 months was more than enough for him to make 2 more deployments to the alien star domain and participate in 2 more ruins market trades, giving him ample time to acquire a vast amount of resources. As long as he had enough resources, it wouldn't be hard to enhance the Kang Chong to first rank in one fell swoop. Coupled with the orange quality, dark matter energy shield generator component, exploring that Buluo civilization ruins wouldn't be a concern. Hearing that Song Kai had agreed, Shen Qing's smile grew even wider. Although there was no great danger in those ruins, the rejection stance within was rather staunch. Even though he had further strengthened his torch warship over the past few months, he was still not too confident. After some negotiation, they finalized their plans, never mentioning either Song Chao or Shen Wenji throughout their discussion. Song Kai did think about bringing his father along, as that would undoubtedly increase their safety, but since Shen Qing hadn't mentioned it, he naturally wouldn't bring it up first. Was it possible that Shen Qing hadn't thought of asking Shen Wenji for help? Of course not. So, since Shen Qing chose not to inform Shen Wenji, it must have been after careful consideration. Song Kai could guess at some of Shen Qing's concerns and understood them as well. After all, if they reported the matter to Shen Wenji, how would they divide the spoils afterward? And who would get the purple quality relic if they found one? Purple quality starry sea oddities were coveted not only by second-rank practitioners like Shen Wenji but also by torch ship captains of third rank and above. Shen Wenji probably wouldn't go so far as to seize an item from his junior, but what if they encountered a purple relic that was extremely suitable for him? Moreover, all that was assuming there really was a purple quality relic. What if there wasn't, or what if Shen Qing's guess was wrong and the so-called second layer of the ruins didn't even exist? Wouldn't that mean everyone had made the trip for nothing? Due to these various uncertainties, it was normal for Shen Qing to choose not to inform Shen Wenji about the matter. Big Qing, you. Having established the general direction, Song Kai was about to ask about the details of the civilization ruins when Shen Qing suddenly pressed his index finger to his lips, signaling Song Kai to be silent. Shish. At the same time, streams of spectral energy converged towards his ears, as if he was desperately trying to catch something. Shen Qing had awakened his seed of torch 2 years ago. With the specialized spectral energy cultivation platform on the torch warship and the generous support of resources from his father and second uncle Shen Wenji, his guidance technique had reached LV7. Coupled with the aid of spectral energy, his hearing was incredibly sharp at that moment. Anyway, Song Kai didn't hear anything at all. 2 minutes later, Shen Qing dissipated the spectral energy that had gathered around his ears. What's wrong? Noticing his visibly solemn expression, Song Kai took the initiative to ask. The people in the next private room should be from the Black Mountain Association. Someone just took a call. The voice on the other end was too soft, and I didn't hear it very clearly, but I did catch 2 sensitive words. No sooner had he finished speaking than Shen Qing continued without waiting for Song Kai to ask further. Kidnapping, titanium crystal. Song Chi's pupils sharply constricted. Kidnappings were nothing new in a society where everyone practiced cultivation. Such incidents were common. But titanium crystal was a completely different matter. According to textbooks from the past, titanium crystal is an extremely high-end resource for enhancing torch warships, far surpassing mercury crystal and mithril. It's said that only high-level components of purple or higher quality require titanium crystal for enhancement upgrades after level 20, due to its extreme rarity. Furthermore, there have been rumors that the upper echelons of torch human civilization had long classified titanium crystal as a strategic resource, coveted intensely by all major powers. Upon hearing the words, titanium crystal, Song Kai and Shen Qing understood that this matter was not something they could easily meddle with. Moreover, Song Kai immediately thought of the incident half a month ago. During that mishap at the Spicy Hotpot restaurant on Mingyuan Road, it was also the Black Mountain Association involved, and at that time, they were looking for 2 miners from Tianyu Mining. Connecting the 2 events, it was hard not to be suspicious. Whether the information was true or false, they had to notify their superiors immediately. After paying the bill downstairs, and not until they had completely left the street where the restaurant was located, did they accelerate their kinetic cars to the limit and head straight for the Torch Bureau. In Shen Wenji's office, upon hearing the words, titanium crystal, the reactions of Shen Wenji and Song Chao were not much different from those of Song Kai and Shen Qing. However, after Song Kai and Shen Qing recounted the details, the 2 were no longer involved. They were subsequently ushered out of the office. Shen Wenji and Song Chao would now fully mobilize their power to investigate the veracity of this information. As for Song Kai and Shen Qing, they were told to go about their business as usual and were strictly forbidden from getting involved in this matter any further. They were also not to disclose anything they had seen or heard that day. Despite being somewhat prepared for this, both of them still felt uncomfortable deep down. The feeling of being too weak to lend a hand was unbearable. Shen Qing drove Song Kai back to Dongjiang Community in the patrol airship and, after reminding him of a few things, departed. Back in his bedroom, Song Kai immediately entered the Zutian Ruins Market and continued practicing the guidance technique. The next day, he interrupted his training once again because the Torch network activated yesterday was now accessible. The thought that all the users on this network were Torch warship captains filled him with anticipation. His spirit merged into the ancestral Torch, gathering at the incandescent seed of Torch. Soon, a small screen lit up on his retina. Would you like to connect to the Torch network, Wanbai Tower local network? Confirm. Following his confirmation, the screen on his retina changed, and a video began to play slowly. Within the vast Star River, over a dozen warships covered in scars were traveling at full speed. Trailing them, thousands of sinister, triangular airships were ruthlessly pursuing, one after another warship being blown apart by the gunfire from behind. It wasn't until they happened upon and passed through an unstable interstellar wormhole that this group of warships managed to escape the pursuit of the alien race civilization and avoid total annihilation. By that time, only 6 warships were left. The video ended there, seemingly without a head or tail, but every citizen who had received orthodox Torch education couldn't help but resonate with the scene. Because the last 6 warships remaining in the footage were the pioneers of Torch human civilization, and also the last seeds of a low-level technological side human civilization that had almost been wiped out. After passing through the wormhole, the human ancestors on these 6 warships discovered an ancient civilization's relics, and from there they obtained the initial source seed of Torch, giving birth to Torch human civilization, which continued to grow and strengthen over the years, leading to the Torch human civilization we have today. Long after the footage, Song Kai had yet to come back to his senses when another 16 characters emerged on the light screen. Starry Sea Expedition, a long and obstructed path. The fire of civilization, everlasting and never extinguished. After that, it was considered a complete landing on one of the local networks under the Torch network. Wanbai Tower Local Network, as one of the many local networks under the Torch network, includes the entire White Tower floating land, as well as the surrounding asteroid belt, fragment belt, and all the awakened citizens of the Seed of Torch within the interstellar fortress, making it the largest information exchange area around the White Tower floating land. Besides that, the local network also contains systems for task assignment and reception, free trade, friends, and many other features. The reason why it is only the Wanbai Tower floating land local network, and not the entire network of Torch human civilization, naturally lies with the low level of Song Chi's fire seed. Although he had enhanced the quality of the Seed of Torch to white not long ago, quality and level are completely different matters. quality only represents the upper limit of future fire seed enhancement, whereas level represents the current strength of the warship bound with the seed of torch. The Kang Chong had just been bound not long ago, and he had only used one special slot, which was completely sufficient, so Song Kai had never enhanced the torch ship, that is, the seed of torch, and its level had always been LV0. Song Kai didn't mind this detail but was instead contemplating the various functions of his account. According to what the Torch Network Awakening assistant had said yesterday, his account did have some special privileges, and it was these so-called special privileges that he was pondering now. After about half an hour of tinkering, he had essentially figured out the various functions of his account. Compared to a regular Torch account, his indeed had some privileges. Overall, there were 3 points. First, normal accounts on the Torch network must chat under their real names, while he could choose to chat anonymously. Second, his account was exempt from transaction tax when trading on the Torch network, whereas other accounts must pay a 5% transaction tax. Third, normal accounts must pay extra in floating land origin to feature or prioritize their task postings or acceptances, while his account came with these features included. Having understood the special features of his own account, Song Chi's curiosity had not subsided, and he began to take an interested look at the various chat messages in the local network. Zhongyuan City, Zhanghai, clearing the fragment belt in the northern star space of floating land, any brothers for teaming up? Changha City, Chaoshan, 100 threads of first-rank floating land origin in exchange for the coordinates of Blood Capital Star Thieves Group's hideout. Zhongyuan City, Tianma, 100 threads of first-rank origin for the Blood Capital Star Thieves Group's hideout coordinates. Friend, are you dreaming? Would someone who can find the Blood Capital's hideout be short of your 100 threads of first-rank origin? Baita City, Chongkong, a spectral airship has gone missing from Viscount Yellen's mansion. Those who provide relevant clues will receive a handsome reward. Subsequently, he opened the local network's trading marketplace with anticipation. Indeed, it lived up to being the regional group chat for the entire Wanbai Tower floating land, with a substantial number of chat participants creating an array of products in the trading marketplace. Minerals, genetic potions, military exoskeletons, first and second rank floating land origins, and even starry sea oddities were not few in number. After glancing around, Song Kai found his eyes dazzled, as there were just too many items on offer, many of which he covetously eyed. Unfortunately, he didn't have much funds at hand and could only look on helplessly. There were many starry sea oddities listed, but they were uniformly white quality, with only a handful of blue oddities, which had rather underwhelming attributes, such as strange object, green barley tree, quality, blue, can evolve into green barley circulatory system. Note: a blue oddity that can promote air circulation, making your future interstellar life fresh every day. As everyone knows, Torch warships inherently possess their own internal circulation features. While the circulating effect produced by the green barley tree might be somewhat better, what's the point? It neither increases combat power nor offers any defensive attribute enhancements, so why spend a substantial amount of resources just to freshen the air in one's Torch warship? Half an hour later, that sense of novelty within Song Kai finally faded, and the curiosity in his eyes gradually settled into tranquility. In between, he pondered over the anonymity function of his account, thinking about whether he could use this feature to disguise his frequent future sales. But then he felt it was inadvisable. The special permissions for his account came from an assistant activator at a Torch bureau in Zhongyuan, and he contemplated that if an ordinary activator could achieve this, it likely meant that the privacy could not be very high. To be on the safe side, he eventually abandoned this idea. Disconnecting from the Torch network, Song Kai re-entered the Zutian Ruins market and continued his daily routine of cultivating the spectral energy guidance technique and visualizing the mythical mech projection in his mind. Time passed day by day in this ordinary manner. During the following 10 days or so, Song Chao rarely came back, busy with his affairs outside, which made his mother, Chen Lixia, complain several times. Knowing what his father was busy with, Song Kai didn't ask too much. Since it was about titanium crystal and he had only just awakened, he couldn't meddle in it, and Song Chao wouldn't allow it either. That day, accompanied by his mother, Chen Lixia, Song Kai once again headed to the outskirts of the city. The Kang Chong had completed a month of buffer, and today was the time for his second exploration of the alien star domain. Of course, it's possible to delay it further, and there wouldn't be an issue even if he decided not to explore the alien star domain subsequently, but naturally, Song Kai wouldn't make that choice. With the dark matter energy shield generator, an orange component, he was now somewhat eager to quickly test the effects of this glorious component. With this component, as long as he wasn't extremely unlucky and didn't encounter black holes, starry sea storms, or void fissures, safety could still be guaranteed. For example, the White-Winged tribe they encountered before, even if the Kang Chong stayed stationary and let them attack freely for 10 minutes, they might not be able to breach the ship's shield value. The energy shield ignited by the dark matter energy shield generator boasted far more than just shield value compared to the spectral shield generated before. Its defense strength itself was also significantly higher. The attacks from the first-rank White-Winged tribe landing on the current energy shield would inflict damage far less than that on the previous spectral shield. When these aspects are combined, the disparity is actually much greater than one might imagine. Zhongyuan city suburbs. It was still that alien star domain launch platform, only this time, the deployers were no longer just students from major academies, but more of them were civilian torch warship captains from Zhongyuan city. As a city with a population of over 20 million, even if only a few dozen ordinary citizens were lucky enough to awaken the seed of torch each year, over the decades and centuries, the accumulated number of torch warships would be staggering. And among these types of torch warships, over 90% could only remain at the spectral shuttle level for their entire lives. The lowest level spectral shuttle-class torch warships could only explore the alien star domain with the help of ultra-long-range alien star domain launch platforms. Only by enhancing the torch ship to level 10 and advancing to the first rank, spectral airship, could they conduct their own explorations of the alien star domain, no longer needing the assistance of the launch platforms. Therefore, this also led to the current situation where the crowds were mountainous and the number of warships waiting for launch far exceeded the previous academy launches. Not long after Song Kai arrived, Sun Hao approached him, and with a glance over, Song Chi's eyebrows slightly raised. In this month, Sun Hao had clearly not slacked off. His spectral energy guidance technique level had astonishingly broken through from LV3 to LV4. Compounded with his already impressive build, the pressure he exerted was substantial. "Brother Kai, you've actually broken through, too." After his surprise, Sun Hao paused, and just as Song Kai was curious about what he was going to say, Sun Hao suddenly came out with an extremely cringeworthy line. "Alas, having you, Winnie Liang." Song Chi's eye twitched, and for a moment, he didn't even know what to say. This guy always managed to pull off some flamboyant moves that completely didn't fit his burly frame. And the kicker was, that line was even TM from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms of Great Han Floating Land that he had once published, so you can imagine how speechless Song Kai was feeling at that moment. Pushing off the hand that was like a bear's paw from his shoulder, Song Kai quickly put some distance between himself and this guy. It was just too awkward. He felt his second-hand embarrassment reaching a critical point. Unaware, Sun Hao soon approached again, his thick arm once again wrapping around Song Chi's neck. Song Chi's complexion visibly darkened, but fortunately at that moment, the 100 people in front of them had finished launching, and staff from the Torch Bureau on the side of the platform were calling for their group. 100 figures stepped onto the launch platform one after another, positioned themselves accordingly, and simultaneously summoned their spectral shuttles. Once all 100 spectral shuttles were ready, the Torch Bureau staff on the outside activated the ultra-long-range Starry Sea launch platform. The column of light that pierced the sky appeared again, and the 100 spectral shuttles quickly disappeared without a trace. A familiar sense of weightlessness swept over his body. Compared to a month ago, this time, Song Qi's recovery was even quicker. His breakthrough in the guidance technique to LV5 gave his physical attributes a slight boost, and naturally, his body's resistance to negative states also proportionally increased quite a bit. Song Kai, having righted himself, activated the energy shield of Kang Chong immediately, just like the previous time. Once the layer of pitch black dark matter energy shield from the dark matter energy shield generator component appeared, he finally let himself relax. The sense of security brought by an orange quality energy shield was just that exaggerated. P.S. Dear readers, please cast your recommendation votes, monthly tickets, and so on. You guys don't speak up, and if you don't vote, I really feel like I'm playing a single-player game. Woo, a tough guy sheds tears. The engine activated, and Kang Chong began to shuttle quickly through the silent starry sea. The position this time was still not ideal. Within the detection range of the patrol radar, no celestial bodies were discovered. After wandering around aimlessly like a headless fly for several hours with no other discoveries, Song Qi's heart had almost sunk to the bottom. It should be noted that for this exploration, he had specially purchased another Furious Tiger mining cart, plus 2 cart-mounted prospectors, spending a total of 400 strands of zero-rank floating land origin, all to significantly improve the efficiency of mining. Now, aside from the batch of temporary emergency resources, he had only 300 strands of zero-rank floating land origin left. If this exploration did not yield enough findings, the profits from the upcoming ruins market would also be greatly reduced. Just as he was feeling anxious, a sudden, urgent alarm sounded from the patrol radar. Numerous red dots clustered in the upper left corner of the radar screen, where 2 large fleets of warships were engaged in fierce battle. Unknowingly, Kang Chong had blundered into the stellar battlefield of 2 warring alien civilizations. The speed of the Kang Chong was reduced to the minimum, and while striving to conceal its tracks, Song Kai also silently observed the sizable war at the edge of the battlefield. The number of warships on both sides of the battlefield exceeded 10,000. Judging by the energy fluctuations emitted from the ship cannons, most of these warships were of zero rank, among them mixed with around 100 of first rank. Overall, it was considered to be of the lowest intensity among interstellar battlefields, the kind that involved wars between civilizations. However, that being said, such battles were still measured by the scale of civilizations. To Song Kai, such a battlefield was extremely dangerous, and he had no intention of getting involved. The dark matter energy shield was impressive, but it would hardly be noticeable in a battlefield with the potential for being targeted by the firepower of over 10,000 warships. Besides, the firepower of Kang Chong was also on the weaker side. At best, it was just a bit more resilient. The chances of taking advantage of the chaos to snag a great opportunity were nearly nil. So there he was, lingering around the edge of the battlefield for about 10 minutes or so, until he locked onto a warship that had mostly drifted away from the melee. Seizing the opportunity, Song Kai quickly made his move, and the already damaged alien warship was effortlessly destroyed by him. Since he had already decided not to participate in the war, yet still hovered around the battlefield, it certainly wasn't because he wanted to join in the excitement. His purpose was for the star charts aboard these warships. He was unfamiliar with this completely new star domain, but that didn't mean these native civilizations were the same. Instead of blundering around like a headless fly, wasn't it better to spend about 15 minutes to obtain a star chart? With the star chart in hand, Song Kai swiftly maneuvered the Kang Chong to flee far away without any hesitation. A few minutes later, having already left the battlefield far behind, the Kang Chong turned and headed toward the nearest small fragment belt marked on the star chart. In fact, the star domain recorded on this chart was vast, not to mention small fragment belts. There were also 3 starry sea floating lands, including a second-rank resource-rich floating land with an abundance of various resources and more than 1 or 2 large metal veins. But the distance was too great, 12 light-years away, which for the current Kang Chong, not equipped with a warp drive, was utterly unreachable. only that fragment belt was within a short travel distance for Kang Chong, an involuntary choice. Another hour or so passed, and Kang Chong finally arrived at the intended small fragment belt. Compared to the one encountered during the last exploration, the diameter of this fragment belt was obviously far smaller, which Song Kai didn't mind. The number of celestial bodies in this fragment belt was conservatively estimated to be over several 100,000, while the remaining time for the stay was less than 20 hours. He would probably only be able to explore about 0.1% of this fragment belt, not even considering the time spent on mining. Knowing there was no time to waste, Song Kai made a trip to the ruins market and brought out a Furious Tiger mining cart. Then, Kang Chong plunged headfirst into the fragment belt. Time slipped by, and the onboard AI of the Furious Tiger mining cart kept providing updates. 10 kilograms of electrum, skip it. Gas mine, a shame it's only a few 100 kilograms, skip it. Starry space cold iron, 50 tons, will take half an hour to mine. Time spent mining always flew by. In the blink of an eye, another 5 hours passed. Although there were some gains, the quantities weren't large, so there was no opportunity yet for the second mining cart to enter the scene. After all, if the amount of mineral deposit was insufficient, it could be mined within about half an hour, and going back and forth was also troublesome. The Kang Chong continued to shuttle aimlessly. Since the fragment belt was large enough, there was no need for any prospecting plans. The surprise came quite abruptly. Just minutes later, Song Kai discovered a fragment with over 1,000 tons of electrum. Radiation response from refined gold ore detected on the fragment at the coordinates 4x. Preliminary estimate is over 1,000 tons. Carefully, Song Kai stopped the Kang Chong over the target fragment. Then, he dropped down the Furious Tiger mining cart from the shuttle, assigned 3 first-rank Fire Peony soldier figurines to guard, and after that, he brought out the second mining cart from the ruins market and continued to operate the Kang Chong to explore. 1,000 tons of electrum would take at least several hours to mine, allowing the Kang Chong to scout a good area. Damn, this place is haunted. The density of fragments here is way too high. After a violent tremor, the Kang Chong just barely squeezed through the gap between several tightly clustered fragments. The shuttle, which had just been repaired a few days ago, sustained some minor scrapes again. Though not a big issue, it still provoked a string of curses from Song Kai. If it weren't for the prospector detecting special radiation fluctuations within this cluster of fragments, he wouldn't willingly venture into such an area. But then again, even the prospector couldn't determine specific results and only noticed a layer of special energy fluctuations. Song Chi's curiosity still was piqued, otherwise, he wouldn't have rushed in so hastily after releasing just 2 standard unmanned drones and preliminarily ascertaining there was no danger. Scanning the area, Song Kai furrowed his brows. At a glance, the area behind the dense fragments seemed normal. According to the onboard AI's prompt, it was still unknown energy fluctuations. Please explore further. Looking at the dozen or so fragments ahead, with the smallest ones being over 10 meters in length and width, Song Kai felt a bit overwhelmed. Manual inspection of each one would obviously take several hours to complete. Seeing this, Song Kai could only bring the Kang Chong closer while instructing the prospector to determine the specific source of the energy fluctuations among the fragments. After about 10 minutes, having excluded most of the possibilities, Song Kai began to deploy mining carts to the remaining 5 fragments for carpet-style excavation. Soon an hour passed, and the first, second, and third fragments were excluded in turn. The Furious Tiger mining cart began work on the 4th fragment. Buzz, 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 the mining cart drilled rapidly, and as the alloy drill bit collided with the rock layers, fist-sized stones flew everywhere, producing bursts of crisp clashing sounds. Behind the mining cart, 5 Fire Peony soldier figurines clad in basic jean civilian exoskeletons stood upright. They held tungsten gold combat shields in their left hands and tungsten gold lances in their right hands. vigilantly scanning their surroundings. Song Kai remained on the Kongchang, which still had its dark matter energy shield activated. Although the survey was nearing its end, he maintained a high level of caution. If the prospector wasn't malfunctioning, then the source of the special energy fluctuations had to be among the last two fragments. Suddenly, Song Kai caught a glimpse of a dark shadow in the corner of his eye. Before he could warn anyone, the shadow darted to the back of one of the Fire Peony soldier figurines at a terrifying speed. The fully armed Fire Peony soldier figurine didn't even have time to react before it was flung several meters away by the shadow, leaving a deep dent in its exoskeleton armor. The attack was far from over. After the initial strike, more dark shadows shot out from the fragments below, swiftly attacking all outsiders on the fragments. Song Kai saw clearly as the exoskeleton of a Fire Peony soldier figurine was effortlessly snapped by the shadow, rendering it completely useless. These shadows were actually dark vines, covered with sharp barbs, exceedingly terrifying. It was fortunate that the Fire Peony soldier figurines were puppets without the pain perception of regular carbon-based organisms. Song Kai took a deep breath of cold air. It was a good thing he had been cautious and hadn't deactivated the dark matter energy shield, otherwise the several lashes that had struck the Kongchang just now could have easily left gaping holes in the shuttle's body. Outside, the Fire Peony soldier figurines that had come to their senses stood back to back, thrusting their tungsten gold lances repeatedly and clashing with the incoming black vines, emitting sharp metallic clinks. The vines were of unknown origin, and they were even more durable than weapons forged from tungsten gold. The other two Fire Peony soldier figurines on the Kongchang quickly jumped down from the shuttle to support their fellows surrounded by the black vines. At the same time, the Kongchang, under Song Chi's control, slowly rose into the air and hovered dozens of meters above the ground, ready to provide support. Although the firepower on the shuttle wasn't very powerful, it was still able to cause some minor disturbances to the black vines. The shipborne secondary cannons continuously tilted their firepower, and at the same time, Song Kai was analyzing the battlefield situation rapidly. Judging by the hardness and attack power exhibited by these black vines, they clearly possessed first-rank capabilities, and not just the initial stage of first rank that the Fire Peony soldier figurines had entered. There was a high probability that they were at the peak of the first rank. 10 minutes later, Song Kai hypothesized that behind these numerous black vines, there was likely to be a single entity coordinating their actions. Their cooperation was too seamless, easily suppressing the 7 fully armed Fire Peony soldier figurines while still managing to attack the nearby floating landmining cart. This smooth, coordinated attack would be impossible without a common command entity, and the nature of the vines themselves reminded him of a particular type of creature. Starry sea plants. A developed root system, hardness comparable to metal, the ability to influence the starry sea's field of life energy, etc. These all matched the characteristics of the starry sea plants he had encountered before. Once he reached this conclusion, Song Kai quickly thought of a solution. If it indeed was a starry sea plant, then they merely needed to completely eliminate the vitality of its main body, and these troublesome roots would naturally be dealt with. With this in mind, Song Chi's gaze fixed firmly on the floating land mining cart below. The unknown starry sea plant was clearly agitated by the operations of the furious tiger mining cart and only then began to retaliate from the core within the fragments. If that was the case, did it imply that directly beneath the last position mined by the cart was where the actual body of this unknown starry sea plant lay? Contemplating this, Song Chi's gaze shifted to a pit over a meter deep in the fragment below, the very spot where the mining cart had last excavated. With the hypothesis in mind, Song Kai was not one to dawdle. He immediately sprang into action. The shipborne secondary cannons continued to assist the fire peony soldier figurines, but the body of the Kang Chong abruptly turned, its spectral main cannon aimed straight at the half-excavated rocky hollow. Ghost light converged. Charging initiated. It seemed to sense the imminent threat, or perhaps it was startled by the energy fluctuations produced during the spectral main cannon's charging process. Regardless, the black tendrils that had been attacking the 7 fire peony soldier figurines suddenly split in half, with a portion rapidly advancing toward the Kang Chong above. The black tendrils were shockingly long, bristling with sharp barbs, and despite the Kang Chong being nearly 100 meters in the air, it still had not escaped their attack range. In less than 2 seconds, nearly 10 black vines had swept their way to the height of 100 meters. Snap! 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 The black vines struck against the dark matter energy shield of the Kang Chong, causing the floating shuttle to shake. Undisturbed, Song Kai disregarded these strikes, maintaining the main cannon's charge. If it were a second-rank starry sea plant, he would have fled immediately, but a first-rank pinnacle was not a threat to the dark matter energy shield, at least not for a short period of time. Why had Song Kai been so insistent on continuously activating the Kang Chong's energy shield? It was all to ensure his own safety. As an orange-quality energy shield, also enhanced to first rank, if it were so easily breached by a creature of the same rank from a different civilization, it would sorely lack the prestige expected of an orange glory quality component. 2 more seconds passed, and when the ball of ghost light at the main cannon's muzzle reached its peak convergence, it signaled the spectral main cannon's charging was complete. Beep. The fire button was rapidly pressed, and a spectral black energy ball, tens of centimeters in diameter, fiercely shot downward. Its speed was so fast that it struck the rock hollow below almost instantaneously. Boom! In the midst of the violent explosion, debris scattered, and when the flashes subsided, the pit that was originally just over a meter deep had astonishingly deepened to nearly 4 meters. Not having achieved a complete success with one hit, Song Kai had anticipated as much. The spectral main cannon's current enhancement level was only LV5, plus it was a standard colorless main cannon, so naturally, its power was limited. He pulled the control stick towards him, and at the same time, the Kang Chong swiftly ascended further into the sky, evading the lashing tendrils. Though the dark matter energy shield was steadfast, there was no need to endure strikes that could be avoided. After the spectral main cannon's first strike, a brief buffering period was necessary. The black tendrils that had split off could no longer cause devastating damage to the fire peony soldier figurines on the fragments, giving Song Kai the confidence to stop the barrage of fire from the secondary cannons and to maneuver the Kang Chong for evasion. Once the 8-second buffering period was over, energy fluctuations once again emanated from the Kang Chong's main cannon at the bow. The spectral main cannon's charging restarted. Seeing this, the black tendrils that had been relentlessly pursuing seemed completely enraged, their whipping frequency becoming even more astonishing. At the same time, Song Kai also noticed that the sharp barbs on the tendrils seemed to have changed. A faint golden glow twinkled among them, casting these already coldly shimmering barbs in an even more terrifying light, to the point where the surrounding starry space seemed to twist slightly in the flow of the gold light. Song Chi's eyes narrowed, instinctively feeling that something was amiss, but before he could react, the next second saw the black tendrils mixed with golden light lash out again. Buzz buzz buzz. Above the dark matter energy shield, waves of intense turbulence immediately appeared, far surpassing any previous disturbance. Correspondingly, the shield value of the dark matter energy shield was reduced by more than 400 points, nearly 1/15 of the total shield value. Could it be an armor-breaking effect? The component of the dark matter energy shield generator had defensive attributes, and usually, external attacks had to go through this reduction of defense before affecting the energy shield. The previous attacks had been no different. However, after that golden glow appeared, these black tendrils' attacks seemed to have increased several times in strength, and the only thing Song Kai could think of was an armor-breaking effect. Looking at the remaining shield value of just over 4,000 points, Song Kai gritted his teeth, forcefully suppressing the urge to react. Even with the enhancement of an armor-breaking effect, the Kongchong could still hold on for a while. He was curious to see which would come first: the enemy's core showing itself or the Kongchong's energy shield being breached. After a brief accumulation of power, the spectral main cannon fired for the second time. This shot still failed to penetrate the rocky layer of the fragment, but judging from the increasingly frenzied state of the black tendrils' attack, Song Kai became even more confident in his inner guess. What followed was a repeat of the previous actions. 2 minutes later, after the fourth shot of the spectral main cannon struck, the pit in the rock below was finally completely penetrated. Through this hole, approximately 3 meters in diameter, Song Kai, high above, finally saw the true nature of the starry plant, hidden within the core of the fragment. Nearly 1 meter in diameter and close to 50 meters in length, the thick main body of the vine was adorned with 2 distinctly different colors. The lower half was a pale gold, while the upper half was the familiar black. After quickly consulting the Compendium of Alien Civilizations and Creatures of the Shattered Starry Sea, Song Kai recognized the roots of this starry plant. More accurately, it was not a starry plant but a special floating land plant known as the gold-devouring vine. The gold-devouring vine was quite a unique floating land plant. It often took root in large metal ore veins, absorbing the metallic essence from the ores to grow and strengthen. Once it matured, it possessed terrifying destructive and attack powers. Having identified the gold-devouring vine, Song Kai felt somewhat relieved, thankful that it was a gold-devouring vine and not a genuine starry plant like the star-devouring vine. Otherwise, it wouldn't likely be just at the peak of the first rank, and the fate of the Kongchong would have been predictable. Being one of the floating land plants, the gold-devouring vine, no matter how unique, could not escape the essence of floating land vegetation. The reason why they are called floating land plants is precisely because they lack the ability to grow indefinitely in the starry space. Thus, it is not that the gold-devouring vine just happened to be at the peak of the first rank. In the unique environment of the starry space, it can only evolve to the peak of the first rank. Otherwise, the external fragment would no longer be able to contain it, and once it left the refuge of the core of the fragment, the special environment of the starry space would claim its life. This was also the reason the furious Tiger mining cart had such a violent reaction when it attempted to excavate this fragment and destroyed the environment it relied on to survive. Having understood the specific situation, the subsequent response naturally became simpler. The Kangchong remained suspended in the high sky, occasionally firing its main cannon, while the 7 Fire Peony soldier figurines began to continuously rush into the core of that fragment. Employing a tactic of harming the enemy at the cost of significant self-damage, they steadily depleted the gold-devouring vine. About an hour had passed, when only 3 soldier figurines remained. The gold-devouring vine within the core of the fragment below had completely lost its life energy fluctuations. A large cavity was blasted into the floating land fragment, and the stellar matter continuously pouring into the core of the fragment had been eroding the opponent. Combined with the suicidal attacks from the 7 Fire Peony soldier figurines, the gold-devouring vine, which should have been very resilient, died suffocatingly amidst the stars. Seeing this, Song Kai still chose not to take action himself but instead sent the remaining 3 Fire Peony soldier figurines to clean up the battlefield. A few minutes later, Song Kai, now holding a fist-sized green crystal core, finally found the specific information on this core obtained from inside the gold-devouring vine in the information database. Name: Crystal of Life. Rank: First rank. Peak effect: can be used to accelerate the growth of various herbs, tree species, and other special plant life, shortening their growth cycle. Note: often found within life entities of the same rank plant class. The value of this Crystal of Life was quite good, roughly worth several strands of first-rank floating land origin, which is about several hundreds of strands of zero-rank floating land origin. Song Kai was very satisfied with this. Although it took more time, there was a corresponding reward. Even if it didn't compare to the 1,000 tons of refined gold ore previously found, it was still equivalent to the yield of several explorations of the star domain by other zero-rank torch warships. He then retracted the Furious Tiger mining cart, which had also been a major target of the gold-devouring vine during the previous battle. At this moment, the cart was damaged to an extent of 30%, inevitably reducing the efficiency of subsequent work. However, Song Kai wasn't wasteful enough to simply abandon it. Once he returned, it could be sent for repairs at a maintenance shop and still be used afterwards. After all, it had cost him several million credit points, and he had just broken even. Just as he finished tidying up and was preparing to directly start the engine to leave, the onboard intelligence system of the Furious Tiger mining cart in the hangar once again issued a prompt. Radiation reaction of phantom crystal ore detected below, initially estimated to be over 100 tons. Upon hearing this prompt, Song Kai hurriedly extinguished the engines that were about to restart and reopened the shuttle bay doors. Phantom crystals were an extremely special resource for enhancing torch warships. Although they were not a specifically required resource and warships could be freely enhanced without them, this did not affect their high value in the slightest. It is said that adding a suitable amount of phantom crystal during the enhancement of warship armor components could improve the stealth capabilities of the torch warship itself. If enough phantom crystal is invested, it becomes very difficult for life entities of the same rank or radars of warships of the same rank to detect. Because of such a special effect, not only within the domain of torch human civilization but also throughout the entire Shattered Starry Sea, the value of phantom crystal has remained high. In the domain of torch human civilization, as far as Song Kai knows, the market price of phantom crystals has reached 5 strands of first-rank floating land origin per ton. If it were true that there were over 100 tons of phantom crystal reserves deep within the star core, then this would be an extraordinarily vast harvest. 1 ton valued at 5 strands of first-rank floating land origin, 100 tons would be 500 strands, and converted to zero-rank floating land origin, that would be 5,000 strands. To a spectral shuttle, it seemed an astonishing amount. With a faint excitement, Song Kai donned the exoskeleton device, but even so, upon exiting the airship, he still felt an extreme discomfort. Ordinary life entities of zero-rank level found it very difficult to adapt to the unique environment of space. This was mitigated somewhat by the exoskeleton armor and his own enhanced guidance technique level, otherwise, he feared it would be far worse. Immediately, he ingested the Kang Chong into the ancestral torch, and then swiftly, with the remaining 3 Fire Peony soldier figurines, entered the core area of the fragments below through the hole in the ground. The diameter of the fragment was only about several dozen meters, so naturally, the core space wasn't large. The surprisingly long body of the gold-devouring vine accumulated in the corner made the already cramped space seem even more congested. Even if the Furious Tiger mining cart had managed to get in, it would have been difficult to operate, let alone the fact that the mining cart was still inside the Kang Chong's hold. To release it would require summoning the 7-meter-long Kang Chong from the ancestral torch at his forehead, which was simply impossible. Consequently, Song Kai could only order the 3 Fire Peony soldier figurines to begin further excavation and prospecting manually, using specially made drill shovels. Before long, at the bottom of a small excavation pit, a few meters down, the Fire Peony soldier figurines successfully discovered a new vein of ore, the very phantom crystals they were seeking. Over this, Song Kai smacked his forehead and made a mental note to prevent such a low-level oversight in the future. Previously, to guard against any remaining tricks of the gold-devouring vine, and because he could not expose himself to the external star space environment for long, he had only allowed the Fire Peony soldier figurines to clear the area. Indeed, aside from the Crystal of Life, the soldier figurines extracted dozens of tons of ordinary electrum. Considering this, he had then entered to casually inspect the site, and finding no oversights, withdrew directly, not realizing that beneath those dozens of tons of electrum lay even greater quantities of phantom crystal. Had it not been for the post-event reminder of the prospector and the vehicle's intelligence system, this bounty of phantom crystal would have slipped through his grasp. The subsequent arrangements were fairly straightforward. It was impossible to manually mine at least 100 and more tons of phantom crystal. Even by the return time point over a dozen hours later, it was unlikely that even half could be extracted. For this, Song Kai had a solution. Without lingering in the core space, and after returning to the surface of the fragment with the 3 Fire Peony soldier figurines, he summoned the Kang Chong and the Furious Tiger mining cart, then issued instructions to the vehicle's intelligence system to dig straight down. If the original core space of the fragment was not suitable for summoning the mining cart, then why not simply create a larger entrance from the surface and enter that way? Leaving the mining cart to work there, Song Kai piloted the Kang Chong on a trip back to the first Furious Tiger mining cart's location. Several hours had passed, and the 1,000 tons of electrum had been mined. He transported the raw electrum ore to the ruins market in batches using the Kang Chong and then returned along with the intact mining cart. The second mining cart was now significantly less efficient, and Song Kai wasn't sure if it would finish extracting the phantom crystal before the return the next day. He felt switching to the undamaged cart would be safer. The next day, a half hour before returning, with the damaged mining cart that had roamed for over 10 hours and harvested minerals worth between 100 and 200 strands of zero-rank floating land origin, Song Kai finally piloted the Kang Chong back. Having mined all 112 tons of phantom crystal and deposited them in the Zutian ruins market, he began to quietly await. An hour later, at the entrance of Dongjiang Community, Song Kai and Chen Lixia both got off their respective torch warships. At home, the Bentang Type 3 car was currently being used by Song Chao, so even though it might seem a bit ostentatious, they had no choice but to drive their own torch warships back as calling for another vehicle was too troublesome. Chen Lixia's flagship was a spectral airship named Dragonfly, which had been upgraded from a shuttle for several decades and now was stuck at level 19, just one step away from second rank. But don't think this small difference of just one level is insignificant. It's a huge gap that has thwarted the life ambition of numerous torch ship captains. Advancing from a spectral airship to a Guardian-class spectral warship isn't just about obtaining certain special resources. It also requires the captains to personally explore alien territories and kill alien life entities that are above their own rank, bathing in the blood of alien races. It is said that when an airship attempts to advance to a warship, the success rate is frighteningly low, initially only 1%, and by investing in certain rare enhancement resources, this success rate can be raised to around 10%. To increase the success rate further, one must kill members of an alien race in the alien star domain and use their blood to baptize the shuttle. The more alien race members killed, and the higher the rank of their blood, the greater the increase in the success rate. Mom, what's the current success rate for Dragonfly's advancement? Chen Lixia pursed her lips and gave an answer that Song Kai found hard to accept. 24%. Less than 1/4, how can it be so low? Song Kai frowned. Advancing from 0 rank to first rank wasn't too difficult. As long as one had enough resources and wasn't extremely unlucky, one could generally succeed. But it was different for advancing a spectral airship to a spectral warship. Once the advancement quest was initiated, there would only be 1 year of preparation time. In the year that followed, the captain would need to put in their utmost effort to increase this success rate, whether by investing rare resources or entering the alien star domain to hunt alien races. After a year, the airship would undertake its advancement attempt. Higher success rates meant greater chances of successfully advancing to a warship, second rank, and vice versa. Chen Lixia had started her advancement quest 5 months ago, and nearly half of the year had already passed. Originally, he had thought that with his father's help, the rate should be raised to over 30%, or even 40%, since his father's flagship had advanced to second rank over 10 years ago. But he never expected it would only be 24%. Chen Lixia gave her son a look. Do you think it's so simple for a spectral airship to advance to a spectral warship? If it were that easy to raise the success rate, do you think out of the over 20 million people in Zhongyuan City, with tens of thousands of registered torch warships, there would only be a few dozen at second rank? Song Kai was left speechless, but the worry in his eyes did not fade away. Considering the current pace, if there wasn't some great opportunity, by the end of the one-year preparation period, the success rate for his mother's dragonfly might just peak at about 30%. This success rate, for an ordinary torch ship captain, would already be considered very high, but Song Kai still couldn't accept it. Within the torch human civilization, it's common knowledge that each torch warship only gets one chance to advance, and there's no such thing as a second attempt after a failure. Once the advancement fails, the torch warship will be irretrievably lost. Although the seed of torch within the body's ancestral torch does not extinguish following the sinking of a torch warship, it will fall into a weakened state that requires decades of buffer time for a complete recovery. Only after the recovery can one's body merge with another Scout-class shuttle and start anew from zero. My mom, Chen Lixia, is now 100 years old. Although she has undergone one transformation in her life level and reached the first rank, possessing a lifespan of 200 years, if we subtract the decades needed for the seed of torch to recover, the chances of her cultivating a new torch warship and having a second chance to strike at the second rank are virtually impossible. Without the enhancement of the ghost energy cultivation platform of LV-19 in the Dragonfly, it's impossible for my mom's guidance technique to break through to LV-20 in less than 100 years. Song Kai is only at LV-5 of the guidance technique, and it would take him more than half a year to reach LV6, even with a 580% boost from the cultivation room. Without that boost, it would take at least 3 years to start, and that's just for LV5 to LV6, let alone after LV15. Not to mention, there is a solid bottleneck between LV19 and LV20. Without the help of a ghost energy cultivation platform, it's common to be stuck on that single level for hundreds of years. Thinking of this, Song Qi's mind couldn't stay calm as his previously good mood from the fruitful exploration of the alien star domain was shattered. Seeing him like this, Chen Lixia stroked Song Qi's cheek and said with a smile, "All right. I know my son cares about me the most. Your dad will find a way. He has been running around busily. He is probably working out a solution." At the mention of this, a gleam appeared in Song Qi's eyes. He was very clear about what his dad was investigating. Judging by how busy his dad had been for more than 10 days, the news about titanium crystal was probably not just an unfounded rumor. Given the preciousness of titanium crystal, if they could really get their hands on it, perhaps they could trade for something that would further increase the success rate of evolving the airship into a warship. With this thought, his mood lifted significantly. With his dad and Uncle Shen, both second-rank torch ship captains, working together, the odds of obtaining that titanium crystal should be quite high. However, Song Kai was still worried. Given the strategic value of titanium crystal, if the news was contained within Zhongyuan City it would be fine, but once it spread, just relying on 2 second-rank torch ship captains might not be enough. With this concern in mind, he clenched his fists tightly, his desire to increase his own power growing ever more urgent. As for the Dingai Song family he had heard about from his dad not long ago, how reliable and powerful they truly were remained unclear. To place his hopes on these elusive words was something Song Kai could by no means do. Rather than depend on others, he preferred to trust in himself. Glancing around, he let his mother go ahead home while he circled the city center several times and made some minor alterations to his appearance. Once he was sure nobody was paying attention to him, he quickly headed toward Zhongyuan's black market. The electrum in his possession needed to be disposed of quickly. As for the smaller loose items, they would naturally be sold later as part of his regular spoils of exploration, which should fetch at least an extra 15% of money. And those 110 tons of phantom crystal. Sorry, but as a rare resource with many uses for himself, hoarding it for his own use is naturally the better choice in terms of cost effectiveness. Renting a large resource transport vehicle, he sold off 1,000 tons of raw electrum ore in one trip. After finishing in the black market, Song Kai didn't linger. He had to use the money from the electrum to purchase more goods. Buying directly from the black market would mean paying significantly more than from regular channels. The ultra-long-distance Spacegate random deployment platform in the Ruins market would be ready the day after tomorrow. That would be his chance to initiate a second round of trading in the Ruins market. With 19 spatial gates, more members of the alien race would enter the market. If he didn't seize this opportunity to stock up and later sell at a high price to make a huge profit, he would feel like he was letting himself down. After all, it was a chance that came only once every 30 days. The 3,000+ strands of zero-rank floating land origin he earned last time were gone in a flash, all invested in the Kang Chong. This time, he must earn even more. East Zhongyuan Torch Mechanical Store, Eagle Machinery Shop. As a regular customer of the store, the young lady at the counter and Song Kai had become quite acquainted. The moment Song Kai entered, she greeted him with a smile. "Welcome. Do you have a good haul from your exploration this time?" Song Kai smiled and summoned the Kang Chong to hand over all the assorted minerals to the Eagle Machinery Shop. Perhaps due to having one previous experience, the Eagle Machinery Shop still offered 80% of the market price for the goods. Of course, Song Kai had to spend this money in the Eagle Machinery Shop, or else the transaction would be void. Not in a hurry to pick out goods, Song Kai fished in his clothes and took out the Crystal of Life from the gold-devouring vine. A Crystal of Life nurtured by a first-rank peak gold-devouring vine. Do you accept it? The reason he took out the Crystal of Life here was because the Eagle Machinery Shop had also been selling genetic potions all along. And the primary material needed for the production and blending of genetic potions was Heavenly Star Grass. For that reason, the output of Heavenly Star Grass also determined the production quantity of genetic potions for all forces involved in the business, each year. Consequently, a Crystal of Life that could shorten the growth cycle of plant-based life forms was always a top-ranking item on the list of goods that potion manufacturers sought to acquire. The clerk's eyes brightened as she quickly nodded. "Of course, we accept." A Crystal of Life of first-rank peak energy level has a market price of 30 strands of first-rank floating land origin. Our purchase price here is 32 strands. What do you think? Song Kai was quite satisfied with this price. However, before he could nod his agreement, the girl in front of him spoke up again. "Is this also obtained from your exploration in the alien star domain this time?" Song Kai just smiled and remained silent, giving no response. Seeing that he didn't wish to say more, the clever and articulate clerk smoothly changed the subject. "I don't know if you have the remnant body of that gold-devouring vine? If you do, plus this Crystal of Life, our Eagle Machinery Shop is willing to offer 35 strands of first-rank floating land origin together for purchase." Song Kai let out a quiet, "Huh," internally, a bit puzzled. He'd never heard of a gold-devouring vine that lost its vitality still holding value. If it were a space plant, its remaining body might have significant research value, but for a floating land plant like this, shouldn't it be common after losing the Crystal of Life? How so? Does the vine body of the gold-devouring vine have other uses? Song Kai casually asked a question, and unsurprisingly, the other party just smiled and shook her head, without giving an answer. He didn't mind either. Why would someone reveal a secret to him? "Sorry, this Crystal of Life was a chance find for me. I don't have the remnants of the gold-devouring vine." Indeed, he didn't have it. He hadn't brought back the remnant vine body of the gold-devouring vine. Something that had no value in his subconsciousness. He naturally wouldn't bother to collect it in the Ruins market. After this exchange, Song Kai started a new round of shopping, or more accurately, procuring goods. No need to mention the tungsten gold war shields and tungsten gold lances. They were exceptionally popular at the last trade conference. This time he bought 10,000 of each, spending a total of 1,000 strands of zero-rank floating land origin. He no longer needed the all-purpose Starry Sea translator device, having bought one previously. The basic gene optimization liquid. He took 1,000 vials of that too, using another 1,000 strands of zero-rank floating land origin, plus he took 10 vials of the intermediate gene optimization liquid, costing him 100 strands of zero-rank floating land origin. He didn't buy any life cores this time. At the last Ruins market transaction, he found that the currency these zero-rank aliens used for trading was primarily life cores. Once the trade conference ended, most of the resources he had earned were these things, so there was no need to stockpile them in advance. Besides these, he also bought 5 sets of basic model civilian exoskeletons, each equipped with 10 durable batteries, which would be enough for several months of overuse, costing him 110 strands of zero-rank floating land origin. This exoskeleton equipment was mainly for testing. After all, it's quite a complex mechanical creation. Without mastering the usage techniques, it would not only fail to augment one's abilities but could also hinder their movement. Whether or not it would be popular still needed to be tested based on the specifics of subsequent transactions. All of the above cost him a total of 2,210 strands of zero-rank floating land origin. Considering the funds left over from the last Ruins marketplace exchange and the gains from his exploration of the alien star domain, he was now completely out of resources. Even the floating land origin he acquired from selling Electrum on the black market had all been spent in this Eagle machinery store. Of course, he hadn't touched the 32 strands of first-rank floating land origin that he had exchanged for the peak first-rank gold-devouring vines crystal of life, planning to save it for later to enhance the dark matter energy shield generator. As a generic enhancement resource for first-rank torch warships like the Spectral Airship, first-rank floating land origin is considered a relatively common resource but still far exceeds the value of zero-rank floating land origin. Don't be fooled by the official exchange rate set by the Chengxing Principality of 1 to 10. Such resources often have no set market price. Only in the various black markets is there a stable sale of first-rank floating land origins, with exchange rates usually at 1 to 14, 1 to 15, and there have even been transactions at the extremely high rate of 1 to 20 in some individual black markets. And in this Eagle machinery store, the price given by the counterpart was also 1 to 10, so Song Kai naturally would not make a losing deal. While Song Kai was buying extensively, at the southern outskirts of Zhongyuan City, the East Mountain Forest Park, Zhongyuan Black Market. Haishan Gold Store is a shop on the periphery of the black market that specializes in purchasing all kinds of metal and mineral resources. The shop buys these unmarketable, full-category mineral resources at 65% of the market price and then transfers them to large machinery stores through special channels at 75% of the market price. Relying on this 10% margin, Haishan Gold Store's annual income is quite substantial. The main reason is the large volume. With a population of over 20 million in Zhongyuan City and tens of thousands of torch warships, plus the private goods diverted by the basic employees of the floating land mining companies each month, the amount of mineral resources flowing into the black market every year is extremely astonishing. Even for Haishan Gold Store, just an outer periphery purchasing store of the black market, the annual profit is extremely lucrative. Of course, the main reason is the strong backing of Haishan Gold Store, as a business of the underground force. Haishan Society of Zhongyuan City. Ordinary forces dare not provoke them, and those who could provoke, don't bother to suppress it. Today, however, is different. In a corner of the street, several figures quietly observe everything inside and outside of Haishan Gold Store. These people have been targeting Haishan Gold Store for nearly 10 days, yet the entire Haishan Gold Store and the backer Haishan Society have not noticed them at all, showing the power behind these watchers. In a corner at the back, a man wearing a black hat suddenly received a transmission from his communicator. The next moment, his lazy expression transformed, with a look of deep respect surfacing in his eyes. Target confirmed. Right in Heishan Gold Store. Go. Acknowledged. After this command, the several figures scattered around the street acted at once, releasing their first-rank presence and pressure. A flash of ghost light flickered across their foreheads, and then 10 formidable soldier figurines emerged out of thin air around each figure. Indeed, these 4 individuals were actually first-rank torch ship captains, and their flagships uniformly carried special components known as soldier figurine trees. With such actions, the commotion caused was naturally not small. There was also a first-rank spectral airship captain stationed in the Heishan Gold Store who sensed something wrong immediately. However, this Heishan Society's first-rank torch ship captain clearly didn't have a soldier figurine tree or any other special component in his flagship. Moreover, the internal space of the Gold Store didn't support the direct summoning of a spectral airship, so he had to rush outside as quickly as possible. At this moment, his only thought was to summon his flagship as soon as possible. As long as he boarded his spectral airship, even if he couldn't defeat the enemy, they wouldn't be able to capture or kill him quickly, and as long as he could hold on for a while, the black market patrols would arrive. Although chaotic, the black market was officially recognized by all the forces in Zhongyuan City and naturally had its own patrol system. But the shadows outside the street were clearly well prepared. How could they let him have his wish? Once the 41st rank soldier figurines appeared, they immediately sealed off the entire Heishan Gold Store watertight. No matter where the Heishan Gold Store's first-rank torch ship captain tried to break out, he would at least be attacked by 3 or more soldier figurines. It was 40 against 1, with the initiative in their hands. The outcome of this battle was decided from the start. In less than 10 seconds, that high-ranking member of the Heishan Society, who had also undergone life sublimation and reached level 14 in their guidance technique, was already controlled by a few soldier figurines, just like a dead pig. Having done all this, the figures on the street quickly retreated, showing no interest in the thousands of tons of mineral resources inside the Heishan Gold Store. 2 minutes later, when those who acted had long disappeared, the black market patrols arrived tardily in their energy-powered vehicles. After a search yielded no leads, they had to leave regretfully. The subsequent reaction of the Heishan Society was no longer a concern for the black market. The Heishan Society wasn't weak, but compared to the major powers of Zhongyuan City, it ranked far behind. Otherwise, its businesses could not be limited to just the outskirts of the black market. It's important to know that the core area is the essence of the entire Zhongyuan black market, with over 90% of the resources flowing in each year transacted there. One basic criterion distinguishing first-tier from second-tier forces in Zhongyuan City is whether a force has its own ventures in the core area of the black market. This point alone reveals the status of the Black Mountain Association in Zhongyuan City. As for everything happening in the black market of Zhongyuan at the moment, Song Kai was completely unaware. After depleting all his funds, he left the torch marketplace of Zhongyuan. 2 days later, in the Zutian Ruins Market. Having cultivated for an entire day in the All Attributes cultivation room yesterday, Song Kai seemed quite spirited as he stood in front of the ultra-long-distance Spacegate random deployment platform, waiting for the platform to finish buffering. 59s 58s. 1-0. As soon as the buffering time dropped to 0, Song Kai didn't hesitate to activate the deployment platform again. Above the platform, the originally 10 beams of light and shadow had now increased to 19, meaning that currently, a total of 19 spatial gates had been deployed throughout the boundless expanse of the shattered starry sea. Perhaps because the number of spatial gates had nearly doubled, it hadn't been 2 minutes since the deployment when ripples of spatial fluctuations came from the entrance of the ruins market, the noise of spatial gates being activated, signaling that creatures had already come through them into the market. Turning his head to look, several merfolk appeared in Song Chi's field of vision. They were sneaking about, their upper bodies human and their lower halves fish. There was no need to consult the Encyclopedia of Civilizations and Species this time. Song Kai was very familiar with this race. Merfolk. The mermaids of this race are extremely famous throughout the shattered starry sea, not for a good reputation, but rather a notorious one. Maid, slave, concubine, and so on. Of course, the merfolk entering the market now were ordinary merfolk, not the extremely rare mermaids. Nevertheless, Song Kai was still quite curious. Merfolk were a rare sight in the Starry Sea. Only in those floating lands where the water area occupies more than half of the land is it possible for such a race to emerge. After entering the ruins market, these merfolk looked around curiously. Observing this, Song Kai took the initiative to approach them. It was clear that these merfolk were well educated or well born, as no translator was needed, and they could communicate seamlessly in the common language of the Starry Sea. However, his interest quickly waned. These merfolk were obviously young and inexperienced, they easily divulged various information, and they truly had nothing valuable in their possession, except for some deep water clam pearls and decorative sea snails, which failed to arouse much interest in Song Kai. Deep water clam pearls did have value, but they needed to be old enough. After 300 years, the pearls could be ground into powder to promote the practice of the guidance technique. When used in conjunction with the ghost energy cultivation platform, the effect was astounding. If there were pearls over 1,000 years old, they would greatly accelerate the practice of the guidance technique at level 20 and above. Unfortunately, the pearls the merfolk brought were mostly decades old, none even reaching a century, offering minimal enhancement to the guidance technique. Since Song Kai didn't covet what they had, these merfolk naturally couldn't buy anything from the various shops in the ruins market. This thoroughly frustrated the merfolk. At the genetic optimizing potion shop, just the scent of the basic gene optimization potion was enough for Gore to feel a strong craving well up from his cells. Without a doubt, the potion before him would greatly benefit him. With a few more doses, it could even cause his bloodline to undergo a postnatal sublimation. When it considered the tradition of the mermaid clan in the Coral Sea domain, where bloodline is supreme, a compelling glint suddenly appeared in the depths of its eyes. It suddenly spoke. How does one purchase this special potion? No sooner had it finished speaking than the text on the light screen in the center of the shop began to change. The age of the deep water clam pearls is insufficient. The older they are, the higher their value, with a minimum age of 300 years required. Seeing this message, Gore's eyes sparkled with an extraordinary gleam, almost making Song Kai, who was in another shop, laugh out loud. In truth, he could understand. The shattered Starry Sea stretched countless trillions of light years, giving birth to numerous civilizations, and among those non-technological ones that pursued mighty power within themselves, one's genetic bloodline, superiority or inferiority basically dictated the lives of their members. Being born into such civilizations, those who were born with inferior bloodlines yet harbored great ambition were extremely pitiable, for they saw no hope at all. And such utterly hopeless matters were now laid out before their very eyes. One could only imagine the excitement in their hearts. Watching the male mermaid quietly head towards the entrance of the ruins market, Song Chi's eyes shone with anticipation, wondering if the other party would bring him any unexpected surprises. Blood Sea floating land, Coral Sea domain. To the north of Conch Island, 200 miles off the southern part of the Sea Snail Islands in the Coral Sea domain, a hidden, faintly visible portal had appeared on the seabed at some unknown time. At that moment, a slight spatial fluctuation began within this illusory portal, followed by Gore, fresh from his exit from the Zutian ruins market, appearing in front of it. Turning his head to look back at the portal, which had once again calmed, the gleam in Gore's eyes could no longer be concealed. The thing known as ambition, which had been deeply buried in his heart, quietly surfaced once more, and this time, Gore did not suppress it. In a brief moment, it became uncontrollable. On Conch Island, the hollowed-out interior of the island held a palace that was somewhat dilapidated. This place was the homeland of the Mermaid Clan's Copper Spear tribe. Once a king-level tribe of the Mermaid Clan, the Copper Spear tribe had declined after several tribulations. Under the constant pressure of other larger tribes, the only territory left under the Copper Spear tribe's control was this Sea Snail Islands region, spanning only 1,000 miles around, with pitifully scarce resources harvested each year. Generation after generation, the once king-level bloodline of the Copper Spear tribe had degraded, and now the strongest in the tribe was no more than second rank. In the endless blood sea where the survival of the fittest reigned, they were precariously endangered. Inside a hidden underwater cavern deep within the tribal area, the tribal chief looked angrily at Gore. Trading deep water clam pearls aged over 300 years for that unknown potion? Gore, I think you've lost your mind. Gore firmly met the gaze of the second-rank fishman. Father, I am sure that the potion can purify our diluted king-level bloodline. With your current strength, as long as you can purify the bloodline by factor of 2, you will definitely enter third rank. The Copper Spear tribe chieftain stared at his son, his voice solemn. You must understand what you're saying. Strange objects capable of purifying bloodlines are exceedingly rare. If it's a sham, your resource allocation will be reduced by 80% each month from now on. Without hesitation, Gore continued to nod firmly. The chieftain said nothing more but waved his hand and threw a jade box at him, inside which were several shiny, translucent pearls.